our live, and then I guess it shows us the viewers over there as well. So fantastic. So we'll just give people some time to come on, and then we will start chatting. And I guess we have to also be conscious of the fact that people will watch this later as well, right? So we don't want to spend too much time. We can just dive right in, and people can even catch up with it later on. That's the real benefit of this. And can you hear me, Stephanie?
I can hear you great. Everything looks great, and sound looks great as well. Are you able to hear me well?
I can hear you fantastically well. My computer's running hot just because you're just so hot. And heating up my computer is what's happening.
That's so sweet of you to say.
Excellent. Okay, and there's where we can see the live comments. Are you able to see the live comments as well?
I can just see that it says one comment. I actually don't see the actual description.
Okay, so if you click see all, do you see it there?
Yes, I do. I actually just clicked on it, and it looks like I can see a hi we had from Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Hey, Barbara. Hi. Oh, there you go. That really shows up. Yeah. Well, hi, everybody. For those of you who are joining us live, and for those of you who are going to be watching after, I'm so thrilled you're joining us today. This is my first Be Live with on Facebook with anybody. I've been a guest, but I've never been, technically a host, I guess. So I'm very excited, and I'm super, super excited to talk to Stephanie Redcross, and I hope you are as well. The reason Stephanie and I are chatting with you today is because Stephanie is one of the guest speakers at the Compassion in Action Conference this year. And I'm very excited. She's my first speaker that I'm flying in from anywhere, because in the past, everybody's been local. And the reason I am doing that is because I think Stephanie has so much to offer, so much value to bring to you, to everybody who's interested in all the things we're going to talk about today. So we're going to keep this really casual. I want this to be a conversation that we're having together and that I want you to be part of. So certainly as you have questions or comments, definitely type them below, and we can see them. And at the appropriate times, Stephanie and I can answer them. But I think the best thing, and hi from London, Sam. It's so great to see people from all around the world.
Yeah, that's great.
So to start with, why don't you, Stephanie, introduce yourself and who you are and what you do, and then we can go into your participation in the conference.
Absolutely. So like you said, I'm Stephanie, Redcross West, and I started a company called Vegan Mainstream about 2009. So it's been about 8-9 years now. And I really started it as my passion. I started it with the idea of, how do I take what I love? What do I take my passion for veganism and my love for business, marketing, entrepreneurship, and how do I bring those things together? And the reason I say it's my passion and my love is I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So I know what it's like to run a small business and have family supported, and what it's like to kind of grind things out at times and so forth. So that love I had, with also my experience in working in corporate America. I worked for GE. I did international marketing and work. I even did financial auditing at one point. And I just love the way businesses work. I love the way they tick, and not just how they work, but I think more importantly, on how they can help our society move forward. And when I think about veganism, I always had this passion or this idea that one way to help veganism move forward, one way to help veganism kind of go to that next stage, is to make sure we have businesses out there to help people transition, stay vegan, people flourish as vegans. And what I thought was, what if I brought my marketing and my business stuff together with my veganism and started a business to support these companies? Would that work? And at the time I wasn't sure. And maybe some of you guys who are listening today, you were like me, and you were like, wait a minute, is this going to work? Can I bring these things together? And it's been some work. I had to go through some ups and downs, and we can even talk about that today, as well as some things that I've learned. But what it's helped me do, and kind of why I'm kind of at this point, is that I've took my passion and it helped me create a business. And what we try to do at Vegan Mainstream is help people do the same. So their passion doesn't need to be marketing. It doesn't need to be business. They can be an author, they could be a coach, or they could be a doctor. I mean, it really can be anything. But the idea is we want to be able to support people through that process and through that transition.
I love it. It's so important and so necessary. And we'll talk about that because so many people who get involved in their own businesses or venture, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit business, they don't have experience in business. Most people don't. They are doing it because it's coming from a place of passion and interest, especially animal advocates. Maybe it's they love animals, but they don't know how to manage people. And there are a lot of problems that can occur without not having business experience, marketing experience, running a team, managing a team. I mean, there's so many issues, and so many of us who support vegan businesses, we have no idea what goes on behind the scenes. They're entrepreneurs who are running these businesses, and they're people, they're individuals. So I've seen so many people succeed. I've seen so many people fail at running their business or nonprofit because they don't have the skills that I'm so thrilled that you're teaching people, Stephanie. I think what you do is so valuable. And I will say, full disclosure, everyone, I have used Stephanie for my own business. And I am just so impressed, Stephanie, with how much you know.
Thank you.
I'm sincere. You are such a good listener. You really understand the struggles that people like me experience, just the challenges running a business. I'm not an expert in marketing. I'm not an expert in running a business. So learning what we need to do to not only start a business, but actually have it be successful and thrive is so key. And I'm so thrilled you're doing what you're doing, and I'm really grateful. So for everybody, the intention is to introduce you to Stephanie's work, certainly to inspire you to come to the Compassion in Action conference. And I will say that the price will be going up at the end of May. So really encouraging everyone to sign up now. Just make our lives easier and just sign up now, so I don't have to keep telling you to sign up, because I'll stop doing that once you sign up. And I'm seeing some people who are here today who are coming. I know Tina's here. Danielle, who is my right hand, she's coming down from Oregon, and she'll be helping me again. Lots of repeats every year, and it's going to be a really special event. So I want you to meet Stephanie, and I want you to hear her in person, and I want you to hear what she has to say today. And I really want to introduce you to her work. So I really want you to go over to Vegan Mainstream, get familiar with her work. What I love too, Stephanie, is that what you offer so much flexibility for people who want to use your services. I love that you can just literally sign up for a consultation based on the calendar that you already have online. It is so easy. So you don't have to feel overwhelmed, people, and feel like you have to create like this whole plan. You can just ask Stephanie questions. You might just be like, I'm really struggling with this one thing. Oh, I can talk to Stephanie for an hour. And I'm telling you, you will get so much out of that hour. So that's my plug for you, because I think you're amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And that's really a lot of what we're hoping to do, is to really inspire people, and help them over sometimes those speed bumps. Because like you said, sometimes the challenges that we have when we're trying to kind of either translate our passion into a business, or we're trying to bring our passion into our current workspace, what happens is we hit a speed bump, we hit a challenge, and you don't have someone to talk to. You don't have someone to say, oh, this is how you get around it, or, oh, this is how you go over it, or, hey, this is natural. We all hit the speed bump and we just push through it because this is a part of it. And I think that's going to be key. And also that's why I'm really excited about speaking at the Compassion in Action conference, because I want to really give people the opportunity to understand that many of us go through some of the same challenges when we run a business, when we start a business. And it's anything to be ashamed of. It's not anything to feel bad about. It is really a cool and interesting skill that we're building, just like building a skill around cooking, just like building a skill around sports and other things. So I don't want people to feel discouraged if you don't have those skills maybe in your skill set bucket yet. The idea is it's just like anything. You can learn these things. So leverage myself, come to the conference, even leveraging Colleen with all your amazing years of experience in doing what you do, I think is just a great resource for people out there.
Well, thanks. And, I do have a podcast episode that talks about being in the workplace and being vegan, because a lot of people struggle with something. For instance, if someone's vegan and they're working as a server in a restaurant or a bar, or they're working with a family in some capacity and they have to serve the kids meat or something like that. So, this is real life, and we all have to, we all have to survive, and we all have to live. So this is not just about, I don't want people who are coming on and watching to think this is just about leaving the job you're in and, doing something that has to be specifically defined as a vegan job. or in a vegan industry or with an animal organization. I will say though, if you can take the work that you're in right now, if you can't leave right now or don't want to, or maybe you love the job you're in, maybe you love being a server in a restaurant. So how do you reconcile having to serve meat while also doing this job you love? So those are questions over here. But I will say that doing what you love, whatever it is, I think is so important, because this is something we spend how many hours a week doing.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't feed us, if it depletes us, if it exhausts us, or if it just doesn't satisfy us or makes us miserable, that's a real problem. So there's so many components to talk about when we talk about work and ethics.
Absolutely. And being comfortable with bringing that into our work environment. I think sometimes we feel like we have to put a wall up and we're almost like vegan after 6, vegan on the weekends, because we feel like maybe we shouldn't be mixing these two things together. And I think that's something that I really hope people kind of maybe take away from our talk tonight, is that those things can be brought together. Now, sometimes we have to do it maybe with a more delicate touch in some environments than other environments. But the idea is that we can bring those worlds together. We don't need walls up, and you have to kind of feel like I have to check my veganism at the door, in a sense. For many of us in your professions, even if, like Colleen said, you're a server, there's such great opportunities to introduce ideas. A lot of times when you think about restaurants and think about bars and think about many of those environments, they want to be trendy. They want to make sure that they're bringing in what their customers are interested in, things that are changes, and people are more interested in healthier options. So thinking about or suggesting having a special item on the menu, or even if they do specials, let's say, for example, adding an item in there that is vegan. It may not say vegan in the title. We may actually stick with the actual flavor because that's what people are purchasing. But the idea of not necessarily turning the restaurant into a vegan restaurant, but taking that initial step of saying, would you be willing, or have you considered introducing A, B, and C? Maybe working with the chef and introducing them to other alternative ways of actually preparing some of the dishes, so that maybe some of the sides or some of the items can be vegan, because they're not cooking it with, kind of some of the scraps from other items. So the idea is sometimes we have to make sure we go in with an open mind when we're trying to bring people to this great thing that we know, this great thing that we understand, and this great way to not only help the environment, help the world, help animals, but this great way that you can be an asset at work by bringing in new ideas and really great things that people may be excited about tasting, eating, or seeing.
Right. Well, that's great, because it's not just about someone who works in the food profession who's struggling with the meat that they're confronted with every day. We're talking about people who are software developers or assistants or nurses. I mean, people who are not, it's not, food isn't the issue, but how do I be who I am in an environment that doesn't support me and is threatened by me just by virtue of me being vegan? How do I navigate those relationships? I mean, that's what we're talking about here, right? This isn't just like recommend to the chef you work with if they can bring more vegan options in. It's more like, how do I talk to my coworkers? Like something that basic, right?
Yep. And sometimes it's just finding common ground. I think sometimes what happens is we go in with the assumption that it's me against them or me against their position. Sometimes it's finding common ground. You may find somebody at work who's highly into the environment, into what can we do? And the idea of helping them connect the dots between what veganism can do and how it can help the environment creates a common discussion, and sometimes a non-threatening discussion where you can talk about different topics and talk about them in a perspective and in an environment that the door is kind of cracked open a little bit. I find is a great way. And then what I used to do when I used to work in kind of corporate America, because when I was in corporate America, I was kind of like the vegan, like, what are we going to do for the vegan? And what would happen is if we were going to do a volunteer project, often different people were able to suggest different volunteer projects. So I could suggest a volunteer project that was a little bit more vegan supportive, a type of project that lent that way. Because the idea is we were going to volunteer our time. So whether we did a Habitat for Humanity or volunteered at an animal sanctuary, the team just wanted to volunteer. And all I've started to do was introduce them to other ways that they can give back and other ways that we can still meet the need of the group, but also I can introduce them to my world. I can introduce them to things that excited me, but do it in a way where we all have that common ground.
Right, common ground. And one of the things we talked about last year in the Compassion in Action Conference, we talked a lot about framing. What you're talking about is speaking each other's language. You're talking about that's where there's so much conflict, is that we're speaking different languages, whether it's our neighbors or our family or our coworkers. And if we're not speaking the same language, if they think we want one thing and they want another thing, we're always going to miss each other. But what you're talking about is finding common ground and speaking each other's language. Community, volunteering, right, giving, supporting the things we care about. That's something that that's a language that everybody is speaking, and you're just bringing in another aspect of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And using it as a way to bring together, using it as a way to build camaraderie, using it as a way to build memories. I mean, when you start to build memories with your coworkers in these types of environments, these are things we all reflect on. We all go back into our phones and look at our selfies and look at our photos and look at the places and things we've done on Facebook. We tag them so that even though it may feel like a softer influence, it's really important that if someone takes a picture while they're at an animal sanctuary volunteering with you and posts it on Facebook, it's getting out to their audience as well, to their larger audience. They can talk about their experience. So a lot of times what we can do to move that needle doesn't always have to be so forceful. Sometimes it has to be a little bit more strategic.
Sure. Yeah, Mary's talking about the fact that she worked in an animal hospital and she was the only vegan, right? And that can be really difficult, but that's if we define, that's because we're defining being vegan as being the ultimate in compassion, right?
Yes.
And everybody else is disconnected. And they are. There is definitely a disconnect for sure, especially in an animal hospital. But they don't see a disconnect because they're not eating cats and dogs, right? So they don't see it as a disconnect. We're seeing it as a disconnect, but they're not. So again, finding the language that we can speak to one another, so it's not, I'm right, you're wrong. I know this thing, you don't know it. How can you not see it? They actually don't see it.
Yeah. It's actually a blind spot. Yeah. And I think sometimes people forget that it's a blind spot. And at a certain point, it's almost, they don't even consciously realize that they don't see it. So you have to kind of bring them back into that consciousness. And sometimes it has to do with using literature, documentation, sharing emails, forwarding things that are on topic. If I'm working in an animal hospital, I'm going to look at other maybe reports or articles or things that have come out of other animal hospitals and what have they done differently? What have they done to maybe be more compassionate to the animals? What have they done to make improvements that has helped many of the animals or discontinued certain treatments that they used to do? So it's not always a vegan thing. It's really about getting them on the path. And the idea is there's things that I do during the day that I don't know if I'd put a vegan umbrella on it, but they're definitely about compassion. They're definitely about me ensuring that I am helping animals, that I am doing as much as I can to protect. So therefore, sometimes you have to remember the action you're trying to do, as opposed to sometimes trying to wear the shirt, almost like the superhero approach. We're pulling out the shirt, as opposed to really saying, how can I introduce them to being more compassionate and bringing that into my work environment?
And how can I also really nurture the compassion that they clearly already have?
Yes.
In an animal hospital, right? They're already compassionate.
Yes.
Conditionally compassionate because we're thinking of all the other animals they may be eating, but they're already compassionate. That is the starting point. So nurturing that compassion they already have.
Absolutely. And it is, I agree with you. It's so important to nurture that. It's so important it's just like if someone makes a vegan meal for you, like when you go to a friend's house and they make that vegan meal, And it may not have been the best vegan meal that I've ever made, but you have to nurture that enthusiasm, that excitement, and that willingness to try. So the idea is you have to make sure you tap into that energy. You have to tap into what people are already doing well and what they're doing to get there. Maybe they need some more steps, maybe they need some more guidance, but realizing that there is some light there, and you want to jump, make that the leaping point from that light, as opposed to assuming it's completely dark.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful. That's right. Because I think a lot of us, when we hold vegan up as the standard, everyone's going to fall short if they're not vegan. So if that's the only standard, then they're always going to fall short. But if we create the standards for them to meet, then they will feel supported. They won't feel judged. You won't feel judgy. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that we were once blocked and we once had blind spots. Most of us, maybe there will be a time in this world where the majority of people were born vegan. But at this point, we're not at that. We're not there. Most of us are not born vegan. And even if you're born vegan, this is still a consciousness. It's still about awareness. Whether you're, we're even the vegans have blind spots. Even vegans, have willful blindness. I mean, we are not perfect when we become vegan. We might be more awake for sure. But we were once asleep. And when we can remember that and treat people like sleepwalkers rather than demons, I think we have a better chance at having true relationships.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, because then we're starting to see us all as part of the same community, as opposed to separating us out and saying them versus us, or kind of creating that line in the sand. And the idea is it takes all of us to move forward. It takes all of us to actually move that needle. And one thing I was thinking about when you were talking is how important it is to celebrate some of those milestones, celebrate some of those things that people do when they start to move in those right directions, and actually let them know that you appreciate them doing that, because that's going to encourage them to keep taking that next step, to keep, leaning into it. And like you said, with nurturing, if we don't encourage them and let them know when they've done a good job, even though it may not be perfect, it may not be the finish line that maybe you had in mind. The idea is that step towards it really needs to be really highlighted, especially at work, where you actually, especially if you're in an environment or a place where you can recognize people for that, or finding a way, working with HR and having them recognize somebody for doing something great, doing something more compassionate. It's a great way to kind of encourage other people to do it, because people love, people love doing good, and doing good does feel good. And I know we shouldn't just do it because it feels good, but it's important to make sure that we help people, I guess, connect with that feeling so they do more of it.
And be celebrated. And who doesn't like public recognition? I mean, don't tell me. I mean, so that idea that they'd be recognized from by the HR department, by their peers.
Yes.
Is exciting. And I want to say something. I just want to ask Gina. Gina's helping us host here. Thank you so much, Gina. The comments, I'm seeing the comments block your beautiful head, Stephanie. Are you seeing the comments? I can't move the comment box. I just want to make sure that not everybody's seeing what I'm seeing.
Oh, it's not blocking mine view at all.
Coming right up into to me. So great. So it sounds like everybody else can see your beautiful face and it doesn't get to that. But one of the things I want to say, just back to what you just said, and we've talked about this before, just in general, but there is a tendency to measure people's progress against our own, and so no one can ever live up to that. And so, like you said, celebrating the small victories. Unfortunately, what I see happen a lot with people who become vegan and who feel frustrated and who want the world to turn vegan right away, and who see friends and family and coworkers that they care about and they respect not manifest in the way that they're manifesting their compassion, i.e. being vegan. And so unfortunately what happens is, instead of celebrating those little victories, like even someone becoming vegetarian, what they focus on is that they didn't become vegan. Yeah. So what you're saying, which I really love, and this means your coworkers too. These are people you spend probably more time with than sometimes you spend with your family. Finding a way to not feel like they're constantly disappointing you I think is really important. And also, nobody ever is inspired to make changes when they are guilted or shamed into doing so. It's just basic human psychology.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really, really important. And I think we have to remember what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be the judge. I don't believe our role is to assess and evaluate shortcomings. I think really our role is to be the coach, be the nurturer, to be the person that can inspire someone. I really think that's a better role to play. I think it's a much more rewarding role to play, as well as I really believe that you might be able to do more in that role than as the judge. I think, and the idea is most of us in our hearts, we want to do as much as we can. So therefore, I really want to encourage everyone to choose the right role. Choose the right role in your work environment where you are to really create the response you want, as opposed to choosing a role that is more of a shutdown, more of a kind of restrictive role. You really want to make sure you are the person that can drive action and excitement, as opposed to the person that really makes people worried or create anxiety. We don't want to, we don't want to create people feeling like they're disappointing you. People, most, like you said, most people don't want to do that, especially people that you work with and you guys have had great wins from a work standpoint. You worked on great projects. You've launched this new software package. Maybe you put a new process in place in the hospital and it's helped you guys evaluate or diagnose people better, or maybe transition people better and so forth. Those are great wins. So the idea is you want people to feel that same feeling when you start to introduce them to your compassionate lifestyle.
Right. And if these are coworkers and that's what we're talking about, and you're doing more of this together, you have to trust each other.
Yeah.
You have to have a foundation of trust. So just a reminder, everybody, we're here with Stephanie Redcross from Vegan Mainstream, and she is speaking at the Compassion in Action Conference here in Oakland in August. And we're really encouraging everyone to sign up and come here, Stephanie, in person. And certainly ask your questions below. Dee is talking about how for Admin Professionals Day, her company, they gave donations to certain professionals, donations to HSUS because they knew they loved animals. I mean, that's a great way to support people and they're in our work environment. So can you talk a little, so you're hearing some of what Stefan is going to be talking about at the conference. We're also going to be talking about those who do want to transition out of a job for whatever reason. It might not just be because they're working in an animal exploitative industry. They just aren't happy and they aren't satisfied and they know they want to do something to help. They want to align their values with their everyday work. So can you talk about talk about that? Just ways.
Absolutely. I would probably say a couple of things. I find that people are in a couple of different buckets. Sometimes people are like, I want to start a business. I want 100% transition. But I also want to mention there's a couple other options out there, because for some people, they still love their, I guess, traditional 9 to 5, and they really want to have kind of a small business on the side. They're not necessarily saying they want to quit their job, or maybe 2 years, 5 years from now, when you're making $1 gazillion, you may make that decision. But the idea is sometimes your passion or the business that you start does not have to be 100% one for one. I don't want you to think that I have to give this up to get this. There are multiple ways to transition into it, or what some people do is they do it over time. They may work in their current job full-time and maybe they start working part-time and then they start their business part-time. So it's almost like a 50-50 split. So therefore, if you're thinking about making that transition, I want you to know that there's multiple options to you. And a lot of that has to do with some of us have financial responsibilities. We all have mortgages to pay and light bills to pay. So we have to be realistic. But at the same time, sometimes we're also feeling it out. We're really trying to get an idea of what type of business we want and how it's going to really kind of form. If you read a lot of bios and if you read a lot of businesses that we see today, the first business that this person started is totally different than the business that they're in today. or the business that they were initially passionate about is not maybe the business that you see now, because the business that they see now is really kind of came out of or was a result of them launching the other businesses. So I bring that up just to make sure you know that you have those options. The other thing I would say about making that transition is a lot of times when we think about either being vegan or we think about the vegan side of ourselves, I don't want you to kind of limit yourself and think it has to be vegan and has to be food. We have to put all these labels on it. The idea is that you're really trying to bring what you're passionate about to the world. You may be filling a void. You may be helping people make connections. And therefore, it doesn't necessarily have to have a specific umbrella under it. What I normally say when I call something a vegan business, it's really the person behind it. So you could have a yoga business. You could do greeting cards. You could be into film. So you're creating shorts, short films. Maybe you're a film student right now. I just say that because I don't want you to feel like it has to have something that links directly to food or directly to animals. It can be something that what you do does have that indirect approach, because the type of materials that you use, we're ensuring they're not sourced incorrectly. You're ensuring that you're helping maybe a certain segment of society move or transition over, as well as we're all should really lean into our passions. I'm really big about doing something that you love and not being like, oh, I got to go to work today. And then on the weekend is when I have fun. And the weekend is when I do the stuff I like to do. I really want you to think about if there's a way to turn that upside down so that more of the time during your week is spent doing things that you really enjoy and you really are passionate about. So therefore, if you're thinking about starting a business, sometimes it's about starting small. It's about, hey, I want to do vegan skincare as an example. So create one or two products. It's okay. Make it in the, everyone loves garage businesses. That idea that I built it in my own home, that type of thing. Start there. Maybe you're going to be at farmers markets. Maybe you're going to do some pop-up events. And that way you can start to understand what the demand is for the product, get some feedback from customers. You can start to understand, even as we talked earlier in kind of this conversation about the business side of things versus the actual skill, because you may be awesome at creating the skincare or hair product, but you may struggle with the marketing side. So the idea is start to get some of that experience in the small scale. See what it's like to set up a table at a farmer's market and interact with customers and answer questions and be customer support or customer service. You know what I mean? Start to understand that and do it in a scale. Do it kind of piece at a time, because we can always supersize your business. We can always take your business once we get to a certain success point and say, okay, let's do more. Let's do more products. Let's reach more people. You can always go big from something that works well. The key is it has to work well at a certain scale. And normally I like to tell people, do it in a small sense first, because then you can build from growth as opposed to build from speculation.
I love that. You're so brilliant. Oh my God, I can't wait for everybody to hear you. God.
I really hope people come. I'm really excited about it because I just want to inspire people. I mean, I hope people just understand that there's options, there's ways. And if we come to the conference, we can talk about it and you can ask questions. I so love questions. I'm not a big, like, let me just do my presentation. So I'm really big on like, hey, just raise your hand and ask me. So I really hope you guys decide to come, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity to maybe talk about some of the stuff you've been thinking about or noodling about or wondering about. And the conference is like the best place to have that discussion, because we can talk about it as a group, and you're going to be talking about it kind of in front of other people that share your same love, passion, and also maybe in that same boat and looking to kind of make a similar jump or similar transition. And it's always good to, do it in similar company.
Yeah, it's like a massive mastermind.
Yeah.
It's like a mastermind.
Yes.
I love that, Stephanie. Thank you for that. I think that's so helpful for people to understand. So the three things that my takeaways from what you just said are, number one, one of the things I've always talked about when I've told people my story and when I've encouraged them, people who come to me and say, I just really love this, but I'm doing this over here, is, I don't know what it's supposed to be. I don't know what it's supposed to look like, is number one, just keep asking the questions. What do I love? What am I good at? And what does the world need? Just what do I love? What am I good at? Because you've got skills to share with the world. The world's waiting for your skills. The world's waiting for your gifts. And second takeaway is that idea that anybody goes throughout their day miserable breaks my heart. We should all be, operating at our highest, and hopefully people can do that. Maybe some of what people can gain from hearing you is also just an infusion of passion back into their job, because it might just be, just getting excited about what they're doing. Again, it doesn't necessarily mean changing jobs, but finding a way to be excited about what they are doing so that you can go to work and feel joyful. Because what you're saying is that, like, on the weekends, if people feel great, but during the week they're feeling miserable, it reminds me of people who say they're not going to do X, Y, or Z until they're retired, which is like 30 years from now, right? Like, why should we put off living now? Why should we put off being joyful now? And the third thing I love what you're talking about is that it doesn't have to be defined in a vegan way. It is broad. The options are endless. And the idea that people, that people can have the opportunity to take the time to figure it out, what it is they're going to do while they have a job, while they're paying bills, while there's security, is a really responsible adult way to go about things. People who get frustrated because they can't move from this job to this new career immediately are not understanding the opportunity they have to really, like you said, test it out, and to also really understand the amount of work it takes. When I was building what I have now, I was basically working 2 jobs. I was working the nonprofit job that I was doing full time that was paying the bills, and I was doing cooking classes and starting to do the podcast and starting to write my books. And when the time came for me to leave that job, I was able to transition because I had built this over here. But the only way I was able to build that was, doing a lot of work to build that foundation so that when it came time to leave that other job, I could use that job, what I'm doing now, to also pay the bills. So many gems just from that 5-minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the key, is getting comfortable with that and understanding that you may be working a little bit hard. We're going to have to grind it out. I mean, running a business is not, step 1, 2, 3 type of thing, but definitely there's space for it and there's need for it. There really is a need. And there's so much excitement around it. I mean, you can think about all the businesses that have been launched in the last 5 years. It's just amazing that people really need and really, really want that help. And you can be the one that gives it to them.
Right on. I love that. The world is waiting for you. I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
Before we go, and everybody, again, make sure you go over to Vegan Mainstream, follow Stephanie on her social media channels. Charlie really wants to be part of this conversation. Come here, Charlie. You can come on as well. But this is actually a really good segue for people to follow you, to go to your website. Tell us more. Dee is asking specifically about the one-on-one coaching with you. Maybe you can also just give people an idea of what they would find going over to Vegan Mainstream.
Yep. So a couple of different things. For some people, if you're getting started, you're trying to feel things out, what we've done is we've set up a couple of free resources for you. We have some free webinars to actually inspire you, especially what we kind of call is Go for the Gusto. That's our webinar to help people if they're trying to make the transition from maybe their traditional 9 to 5 over to starting a business. So I highly recommend tap into some of these free resources. We've also started to do these like vegan business essential guides, which kind of walk through some of the essential things that we all have to do in our business. One of them is called like hiring in and out. So it talks about how to hire people. We have another one called Marketing Madness, where we kind of talk about all the different skills and tools and different things that you can really launch to help you with getting a marketing campaign off the ground. And all of these are free. All you do is just put in your email address and we send it right over to you. So I highly recommend that. If you're looking for more support, more kind of one-on-one, then we do have our consults. You can sign up online, just like Colleen had mentioned earlier. We try to make it pretty simple where you can just click a button, see my schedule and say, oh, she's got time on Tuesday at 4 o'clock. got it. I want that time. So you can do that. As well as if you're really just starting out and you're not sure, we do a 20-minute what we call discovery call. So it's a free call where you can get on the phone with me and just, hey, buddy. And we can just get on the phone and chit chat for 20 minutes. And I can either point you in the direction of the right tool or software that you need, or we can set something up if you want to work with us directly.
I cannot, again, emphasize enough how easy it was to set things up with Stephanie. And I've worked with a lot of different professionals, marketing professionals, and there's a reason I'm working with Stephanie because I have just been so impressed with, again, the way you have things set up, the amount of resources that you have for people. When you're talking to Stephanie, I'm really not saying this. Stephanie does not expect, I am so impressed with how many resources she has in her brain, the amount of follow-up she does so that you can get the resources if it's not readily available in her brain. It's so helpful and in such a short period of time. So, I mean, you can take advantage of the longer offerings that Stephanie has to work with her in kind of a, in a big package, kind of with a bigger plan, or you can just do, one-on-one consults, hourly consults. Consults. It's the options are really endless, and I love that you set that up. So I hope that answers your question, Dee, and I hope that answers Mary's question, because Mary said that she left her job recently to follow her passion, and there she is. But don't know where to begin. I love helping people in writing. I'd like to figure out how to marry the two. So Mary, I really, really encourage you to go over to Vegan Mainstream and then talk also a little bit before we say goodbye, Stephanie, about the vegan jobs board.
Oh yeah. We also have a job board. I'm so glad you reminded me of that. So we have a job board dedicated to people finding vegan jobs at vegan companies. Some of the companies are food related companies, but it's really the gamut. We have some animal sanctuaries on there. We have coaching companies. We have really educational companies, as well as some of the big guys out there, like the PCRMs and of the world. So the idea is, if you're looking at, maybe you're not ready to start your own business, but you do want to start to maybe align your career with a company that is already kind of supportive of compassion, veganism, and so forth, I highly recommend taking a look at the job board. It's just jobs.veganmainstream.com. It should be in the heading of any of our websites. You should be able to get over there, or in the footer, either way. But it will allow you to apply for jobs. You can set up a job alert, which is kind of cool. So if a new job pops up in your area, we'll just shoot you out an email and you can take a look at it.
I love it. Tons of resources, so much inspiration, so much information. I'm so glad you took the time to share this with everybody today. And I'm so excited to see you in August. And I hope everybody else will join Stephanie and me in August for the Compassion in Action Conference. It's going to be a real special time.
Yeah, this is going to be great. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks everyone for the wonderful questions. I'm really excited, and I love seeing that people are thinking about making that leap or have made that leap, like someone like Mary. So thanks for having me. And I'm supercharged. I want to almost jump off here and start working on our presentation because I got so many ideas bouncing around. So I really look forward to seeing everyone in August. And I look forward, obviously, seeing you as well, Colleen.
Thanks, everybody. All right, we're over and out, and hopefully I can end this without too much trouble. Thanks.